Darling, I told my father everything. About us. About the vows we whispered in private under that quiet desert moon. I thought I was ready for the storm, but nothing could have prepared me for the fury that followed. His Highness, my father, the ruler, the poet, the visionary, looked at me not as a son anymore, but as a man defying centuries of royal expectation. The room fell silent after I said the word marriage, and the silence wasn't just in his breath, it echoed through the golden corridors of the palace. His gaze, usually warm with the pride of a father who has watched his son rise to become the crown prince, was now sharp, royal, and edged with thunder. "Hamdan," he said, barely above a whisper, "do you understand what you've done?" I stood tall, but my heart pounded like a war drum. I wanted him to see love the way I saw it, not as rebellion, but as destiny. Not as disgrace, but as a declaration. Yet the weight of the royal family, the legacy of Dubai, the bloodline of visionaries past, hovered between us like a ghost. He spoke of duty, of alliances, of chosen unions crafted behind silk-draped doors for the preservation of heritage. I listened, outwardly calm, inwardly shattering. He reminded me of the names of noble daughters from esteemed lineages, of political harmony that could be sealed with rings rather than treaties. "You are not just Hamdan," he said. "You are the future of a nation." But how could I explain that I found a woman who makes the future feel like more than gold and power? That with her, I am only Hamdan, the man, not the title. I tried to tell him. I tried to describe the poetry she brings to my life, the kind that lives between the lines of my own verses. How she understood my silences, how she saw me not as a prince but as a person. I told him how she stood by me when no one else dared. How love, real love, makes a ruler stronger, not weaker. But he wouldn't hear it. Not yet. His voice grew colder, but his eyes, they betrayed him. They shimmered with something like fear. Or perhaps remembrance. A man who once loved outside the lines, only to be drawn back into the framework of royal command. Guards were not summoned, but tension was. "The council will hear of this," he said. "The family will question. Whispers will begin in the majlis, and the newspapers will twist this into scandal. You are risking the crown for a heartbeat," he warned. And I smiled, not in arrogance, but in love. "No, Father. I am strengthening the crown with something unshakable." That was when the silence between us shifted from anger to something deeper, disappointment laced with awe. He looked out the window, toward the skyline we built together, glass towers and marble dreams. "You think I never chose love once?" he said softly, almost to himself. For the first time, I saw my father not as a ruler, but as a man who had tasted rebellion, then buried it beneath robes and tradition. I asked him, "Did you regret it?" He said nothing. And in that silence, I found my answer. Now, the palace is stirred. Uncles speak in riddles. Aunts send veiled warnings wrapped in sweet tea and concern. The court poets ask why I've stopped writing. But I have not stopped. My pen has simply turned to truth, and my truth is you. The people feel the tremor. Dubai's prince defying expectation for the sake of an unknown queen. But love, I believe, is not disobedience. It is a vision. And vision is what my father once taught me to follow, no matter the cost. There's fire in every corridor now. Not literal, but legacy burning at the edges. My younger siblings watch closely. Some cheer. some fear. Ministers whisper in the shadows of date palms, debating between scandal and revolution. But amid it all, I stand resolute. Not in rebellion, but in love. For what is a throne worth if it denies the heartbeat of the man who must sit upon it? You've been sheltered from the full blaze of the fallout, my love. But I know you sense it. The distance in the calls. The increase in protocol. The sudden pressure on your every step. I wish I could shield you more. But then I remember how fiercely you love me, and I know you are stronger than any storm stirred in the palace air. You are the eye of it. Now, the question lingers like a golden thread in the wind: will he relent? Will my father, the architect of cities and destinies, allow his son to write a verse of his own? My father had not summoned me, which said more than words ever could. In our world, silence is not absence. It is power suspended mid-air, waiting to strike or soften. I sat there, at the edge of my own bed, clutching a letter I had written to you in the dark, the ink barely dry. I couldn't send it, not yet. Not when every word I wrote to you could be weaponized. There is something peculiar about being born into a royal line. Your life is watched even before you take your first breath. And now, every move I make is examined for weakness or rebellion. Ministers argue not about whether I should love you, but whether I should be allowed to do so in public. They forget that I am not only their crown prince, I am still a man with a heart, a soul, a purpose beyond ribbon cuttings and official decrees. And in that, I feel their fear. Because love, true, unapologetic love, is the one force they cannot predict nor control. That afternoon, I rode into the desert alone. No guards. No protocol. Just me, the wind, and the sand that has always known my truth. I needed to speak to the land that raised me, the quiet plains where my ancestors once stood with nothing but belief. The desert does not care for royal titles. It does not bow to bloodlines. Out there, I remembered who I was before the world crowned me, and more than ever, I knew, this love is not a detour. It is my direction. And I would not turn away from it. Not now. Not ever. Returning to the palace, I was greeted not with warmth, but with cold protocol. My father had called for me, finally. The same chamber where treaties had been signed, where the future of Dubai had been mapped out in ink and will, now waited for me to make my stand. He sat at the head of the long table, dressed not in the robes of a ruler, but in something simpler, something that reminded me of the man who once taught me how to ride, how to write, how to dream. Yet his eyes, still sharp with authority,